Hi, my name is Eliana, and this is my project for the mix and match assignment on planning biography about Jane Jacobs. So this is the outline of the presentation I will be giving today. This is a really cool picture on here. This is something that Google made for James Jacob on her 100th year anniversary. But we'll be talking about who Jane Jacobs was, her famous accomplishments, her philosophies regarding cities, the role she played in urban planning, her significance and influence that is felt today, and of course, my references. So first, who was Jane Jacobs? Now, Jane Jacobs, this is like a kind of overview, and I'll go a little bit more in depth, but she was a journalist, an activist, and an author. She fought for community-based planning, mainly in New York City and in Toronto. She was born in Pennsylvania in 1916, and she died in Toronto, Canada in 2006. So she was actually born in, like I said, 1916 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and she was the daughter of a doctor and a nurse. And she left Pennsylvania in the middle of a depression. She moved to New York City, where she moved to Greenwich Village, where she kind of fell in love with the city. Now, she was a journalist at this time, and she just fell in love with the city and how she said that you don't have to be rich to accomplish something great. She soon became an editor at the Architectural Forum, where she was able to observe the mechanisms and city planning and urban renewal. She did this really by when she visited Harlem. So what she mainly did was, fought for communities and prevented a lot of expressways, and helped protect local communities and neighborhoods that were, going to be ran over by this top-down urban planning. So we have her famous accomplishments. Here's a picture of her and the infamous Robert Moses. But during the 1960s, Jane Jacobs, she became heavily involved in urban activism as she was, learning more and more about this urban planning. And she led local efforts to stop the neighborhood clearing and highway building by Robert Moses. He wanted to build an expressway through Washington Square, and she was like, heck no. She lived near there and she knew the life that happened in Washington Square, and she fought hard to oppose it. And she actually was the chairman of the Joint Committee to stop the Lower Manhattan Expressway. Although she ended up, being arrested for her efforts, they did successfully stop the park from becoming a highway, an expressway. And her campaign is often considered to be one of the turning points in development for New York City. So, like I said, she was never a planner or a city planner, but she did write a very influential book called The Death and Life of Great American Cities, where she coined terms like social capital and mixed primary uses. So this book became one of the most influential American texts about the inner workings and failings of cities, and she really did inspire generations to come of urban planners and activists about like kind of what you can do in these areas. She's also regarded as the mother of Vancouverism, which is an urban planning and architectural technique. So in 1968, Jane Jacobs, she moved with her family to Toronto, Canada. They did this in protest of the Vietnam War. And she, while she was there, her work was still not done. She continued to be a critic of top-down planning. And in the 70s, she helped lead a campaign called Stop Spadina campaign to prevent the construction of a major highway through some of Toronto's liveliest neighborhoods. She kind of has a trend going with stopping these highways. And Vancouverism is it combines a respect for nature with an enthusiasm for like busy, engaging, active streets and dynamic urban life is how Google defines it. So next we have her philosophies regarding cities, and she had a lot of them. So the first one, she said that she saw cities as ecosystems. She suggested that building streets and neighborhoods over time, they function as dynamic organisms, and they change in response to how people interact with them. She then also had the philosophy of using mixed use development. So this is integrating the different buildings, types, and uses. So having residential and commercial, old and new, she wanted to have these different types of developments in the city. And she even went down to talk about how different, ages will use the different developments at different types of the day. And she really was pushing this for community vitality. She also has bottom-up community planning, which is opposing the traditional top to bottom or top-down urban planning, which relies on the judgment of experts and people hired in to come in. And she really wanted to focus on local expertise and that they are better suited to guide the community development because they live there. Next was higher density. She illustrated through pretty concrete examples on how higher densities yield a critical mass of people that are capable of supporting more vibrant communities. So what this means is like having more people in an area is actually contributing to making them safer. Having more eyes on the street can actually create like a more safer neighborhood, which was opposing of what people traditionally thought. And next we have local economy. She developed a model of local economic development where she promoted small businesses and creating and supporting creatives and urban entrepreneurs. All right. So her significance in urban planning was pretty large. I would say it completely shaped how we view urban planning today. But she said that there is no logic that can be superimposed on a city. People make it, and it is to them, not buildings, that we must fit our plans. So she had a very harsh criticism of slum clearing and housing and high-rise housing projects. And she was really influential in discrediting these once like universally supported um, practices where they would just clear slums and it would be no big deal. And some people, Robert Moses used to say, some people, somebody, not everybody's going to like it, and if I have to have a plan that everybody likes, then we would never get anything done. But she very much opposed these ideals. And she advocated for community-centered approach to urban planning. And this was far before this idea was even conceived, even thought about. She was the kind of the turning point in urban planning. And so that significance and influence is definitely felt today. There was a movie that came out in 2016, with Trump at being the president. And so this movie was about her life and her legacy and how she really fought for cities and fought for communities and local neighborhoods. And this is from an article from Vanity Fair. They said that Jacobs was fearless in speaking truth to power, the model of a citizen soldier. Her story resonates today as we are faced with a president and international developer, no less, of luxury towers, talking about Trump, who throws around the terms urban renewal and American carnage. So this film can be seen as a playbook for people who want to defend vulnerable minority communities everywhere. And, Jacobs was truly an icon. I mean, there's t-shirts and marches that they dress up like her. But she had no professional training in city planning. She was just somebody who saw something that was wrong and fought for it and truly changed an industry. She completely changed urban planning forever. Yeah, she did this community-centered approach to urban planning like way before this was even conceived. And so she's just an incredible story on what you can do when you are really passionate about something and believe in something. And of course, these are my references. So thank you. And yeah.